Hello everyone, it is kiln opening time again. I've taken everything out of the kiln just because it was hot in there. Lighting wasn't that good and brought it all out here into the sun so we could see. The reason I wanted to do this video is because I did a lot of experimenting in this firing. And I kind of just want to talk about some of the things I learned, some of the good and the bad. So kind of go to the bad first here. I'm experimenting with different clays. I got some red clay from a clay center kind of locally. It's made by Stone Mountain, and they have a lot of clays and glazes. I've never tried any of their clays or glazes, so this is Schoolhouse Red. I'm probably never going to use this again. It's much darker than I thought it would be at Cone 6, so just not loving the way that the glazes come out on it. They kind of have a muddy look. They get a little bit more muted than I'm used to. And I don't particularly like working with it. I did have some cracking in some previous firings. So that's just an experiment. I had about 50 pounds of it, so I tried to use it up. I use all of Coyote Shino glazes on these texture dishes. There's pistachio Shino, light Shino, light blue Shino. That's probably about all I used on them. And the colors came out much different than what I'm used to. They kind of look more pastel looking, I guess, if you can really see that. On this bowl, I drizzled some turquoise jewel glaze, and that's by Kentucky Mudwork, so that slash that's going across there is just drizzled on. And in previous firings I did get some nice overlaps with that glaze, so I thought I would do that with this on top of Coyote Shinos. That blue right there, if you can see that, that's just from the overlap, so there's definitely some potential with that. It kind of reacted nicely to the Shinos. So probably not going to be using that clay again, but that's okay. These salsa bowls were a refire. So one of the things I wanted to kind of ask about is Oasis Glaze by Coyote. I have tried a lot of different things with this glaze. It's really a nice blue. And it has Coyote's Shino underneath, so there is some pull there. The thing is this glaze has always been incredibly thick, and people online have talked about that. I mean, it's just really, really thick, and you can keep adding water, and you come back, and it's still thick again. So I added some Epsom salt to it, which is something you can try to do to thin it down. And nothing happened. It is exactly the same as it was, so I really don't know what to do with it. It crawled a lot in the last firing. You can kind of see where there's some places where there's no glaze still. On the inside, I had put some of Coyote's mint glaze to try to soften it and bring it back, and it did. It kind of worked. There's pinholing there. But Oasis is a nice glaze. I'd like to use it up if I could. I'm just not sure how I'm going to do that, and you can see it got really runny there second time in the glaze fire. So anyways, if anybody knows what to do with that glaze, I would love to hear it, because I still have probably 10 or 15 pounds of it left. And this was on Speckled Brown Stoneware by Highwater. And the Speckled Brown Stoneware is the clay that I'm been using more than anything else, but then I kind of discovered this other clay, which is this right here, and it's called Redstone by Highwater. It's kind of has a brownish red look to it, so it's not anywhere as dark as the Schoolhouse Red. You can see the two there, and this was all done at Cone 6. Schoolhouse can be done much lower. It can be done, I think, like 04 to Cone 9 is what it says on it. And that's how dark you're going to get it at Cone 6. At least that was my result. So I have preferred this Redstone. It's more versatile. And this is Oasis by Coyote on the Redstone. And you can paint Oasis on because it is so thick that I've been able to paint it on much better than dipping. And then this is Oasis on the Schoolhouse Red, so you can kind of see the difference. It's just a little bit darker, and Oasis holds up really well on darker clays, and that's what I've used it on more than anything else. So I did a bunch of what are, little tumblers or unamis, and did a bunch of glaze experiments, and it was a lot of fun to do, and I kind of learned a lot doing this, because I use glaze combinations I would never normally even experiment with, and even glazes that I probably would never use on red clay, or even brown clay. There's some glazes here that I bought to go onto white clay. I thought, well, let's try it on red. So this is Speckled Moss on the bottom part here. Speckled Moss is by Laguna, and this glaze, this brown glaze on top, is called Green Gold, and that's also by Laguna. Now, I probably wouldn't use that green gold too much in the future because it is pretty dark. It's a dark brown with some like yellowy green look to it. And I did it over the speckled moss and got this great runny appearance. Speckled moss just looks fantastic on this redstone clay. I've already ordered more, so I only had 1 pound of it, and I was dipping all of these into little 1 pound containers of glazes that I've had for a while, and I just wanted to do something with them. So I was pretty happy with that result, and I've done a little bit of overlaps with this speckled moss and got a similar result. So I'm hoping to find a lighter glaze to be able to get something similar to this. And this next one is Pale Seaweed by Standard Ceramic. And pretty much on its own, it does a lot of dripping and color variation. I think it looks great with this redstone clay. And on the inside is, you probably won't be able to see it too well, but it's called Khaki. And that's a standard glaze also. It's sort of a satin brown. And I did bring it all the way over the lip, so there is an overlap there, but I think that has a really natural look to it. And I'm definitely going to use Pale Seaweed because it's so much variation in just one slow dip of the glaze. You have the dark green, and you have this sort of lighter sage color that comes up, and a little bit of blue, and that may have been from the overlap under the khaki. I got like a nice blue streak there. So I don't really want to use khaki either because it is kind of just a bland brown glaze that I don't think people will like that much, but I do like the overlap that I got from it, so it has some potential. And Pale Seaweed and khaki are both standard ceramic glazes, unless I didn't say that yet. So this was a glaze that I've had for a while from Laguna. It's called Light Blue, and you have to kind of really search to find it. It's not a Moroccan Sands glaze. It's just in their dry glaze category. And on white clay, it was horrible. It just was so flat looking and dull. I just didn't think I was going to use it. I really do like how it came out on this redstone. And inside is Pale Seaweed. I have my little notes in there so we can't see, but Pale Seaweed's on the interior here. And there's a lot of color variation again with that. And there's a little bit of overlap on the top, and the Pale Seaweed is underneath the light blue. So it got a really nice pull to it, and I kind of just think the Pale Seaweed, you're going to get nice overlaps with almost anything you do with it. So there's a lot of potential there just in that, 2 glazes that I've just had sitting on the shelf, and now maybe I can do something with them. I had two mugs with that, so they both came out pretty close, a little bit thin on the light blue there. So the star of the show is these, again, Speckled Moss, which I just really like it a lot. It came out much better on redstone than on speckled brown that I've done before. So this glaze on top of it is Waxy Blue by Kentucky Mudworks. And I think this is probably the best thing that came out of the kiln today, because I've been in search of trying to find some glaze combinations that I can use that are, you know, maybe possibly going to be popular. And there's some purple showing up, mainly because the waxy blue, if I can get a good shot of it in the inside here, it is kind of a blue, but more of a purple. And you're supposed to be able to get kind of like this tie-dye look from that glaze if you want to go on Kentucky Mudworks and look at their samples. It kind of has more variation than what I've been getting. But for me, it is all about this overlap. I probably would not use it on the interior of a cup. I would just have it come over the speckled moss. All of that color is just from that overlap of those two glazes. And that was the waxy blue over speckled moss on Redstone at cone 6. Pretty good. It's probably the best glaze combination that I have found so far. And there's probably, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 colors that are prominently showing up there. So that was definitely the star of the show. I used that green gold on the outside of this mug. Not too great. But it does have speckled moss on the interior. There was some nice overlapping that occurred. Not a glaze I probably will use. And it's actually a translucent glaze too. And that's one thing in this firing that was interesting, is that I would never usually use translucent glazes with brown or, you know, red glaze. But you can have some good results doing that. And even just this overlap is pretty nice. And there is potential there, but I don't really need a brown glaze. And here is the thing, again, that I just mentioned, which is this purple. I was so surprised at how well this showed up. This is Hyacinth by Laguna, and that is also a transparent glaze. And I just could not believe that it had so much purple to it on this clay. So I really could see myself using it. It kind of has like a lavender heather look to it. I used another transparent glaze on the interior, which is forest green. It kind of has a blue-green look on this clay, and the overlap there is really nice. So once again, you know, you really have to test all of your glazes and do things that you wouldn't normally think to do, and that's what I'm trying to get in the habit of doing. So I put my note back in there, and I have 2 Kentucky Mudworks glazes that I really like. I've done these both on speckled brown. Now this purple is called Petunia. Hopefully we're seeing it. It's hard to pick that up. It's kind of dark, but it is much more vibrant looking than what I would have ever thought. And I wished I had done it on the outside of a cup just so we could see it. But you get a little bit of it there on the rim. The yellow is called Sunflower, and I overlap that on top of the purple. Not exactly loving the overlap or anything like that, but I was really happy to see that that purple held up on a darker clay like this. I really thought that was a white clay glaze only, but it goes to show that you really have to test things and try things out. And I don't exactly hate the way that looks. There was no pull involved. And that Sunflower glaze has been really great. If you're looking for a yellow, Sunflower by Kentucky Mudworks is really reliable and has come out nice and vibrant yellow on every clay that I've put it on so far. These I don't like very much. This was that Schoolhouse Red clay, and it's just a bunch of Shinos together, overlapped, you know, like pistachio Shino with cedar Shino on top of it. Those are by Coyote. Did not like the way those looked. So, and I wanted to show, I got to go back a few, that Hyacinth on the red clay. This is what it looks like on white. Kind of like a gray purple. This is porcelain clay. You know, it was not very nice, and I just thought, oh well, so much for that glaze, and just happened to do the testing and got that nice, you know, lavender color. So I'm just saying, you really have to experiment and go back to some of the glazes that you think you might not even like anymore. I want to try doing a graffiti mug. This is all underglazes, just crazy underglazes slashed on. This is on Redstone clay, and just clear on the inside. So the clear that I use is HF9 by Amico. It is their zinc-free clear, and everybody says that you really have to use this on top of the underglazes. I find that it is very cloudy and gives a milky look, and I don't really know if it's just because I'm painting it on and there's thick and thin parts. It does not really have the color bleed that you're trying to avoid, so that's the reason to use it, I guess, is that the black, like that black line right there, did not bleed into the white. I put all of the underglazes on at the greenware stage and fired it, to cone 04, so they were already stable. I'm not sure if they would bleed, so I kind of want to experiment with other clear glazes. If anybody has any suggestions on clear glazes over underglazes, so that's something that I want to try because it's too milky, too cloudy. I don't really like the way this glaze behaves when you paint it on. It's hard to work with, and it's hard to get dry also because I'd like to just get dry and mix it myself. And there's plenty of other clear glazes out there, so maybe there's a chance that there's other ones that are better. Well, that's about it for this kiln opening. Thank you for watching.